My recording had just stopped because it's been like 30 minutes. I got a scripture right here. Let me get it. This is Deuteronomy. Let's see if I can get this scripture real quick. Deuteronomy 7:6. It says, "For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy power." It's talking about the Israelites. Holy means true or separate. Thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy power. The Lord thy power have chosen thee to be a special people, something that's special, something that's distinguished from the rest. If you got a bunch of basketball players, but this one is special. He's special because he's distinguished from the rest. He possesses talents that others don't. He possesses talent to a far greater level. So when the scriptures told us we're special, the Most High looked at us as being distinguishable from the rest. He looked at us as being greater than above all the people. Yes, there are only one people that are chosen. The Lord thy power have chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So we're above all people upon the face of the earth. That's all the talents we possess. Nobody else do. Nobody else possesses. All of the inventions made by the so-called Negro. Okay? You had Granville T. Woods. I believe he was a son of slaves or born a slave. Granville T. Woods created the multiplex telegraph, which was a device that was used to allow trains to communicate with one another, the distance they were apart, to prevent train crashes. Because prior to the multiplex telegraph, there were a lot of trains that were colliding on railroads. And when the multiplex telegraph was created, train conductors were basically able to communicate with one another the distance from one train to another. That way they could prevent accidents. An example of that is when you're in a train and they tell you like, there's a train coming out of the station ahead of us. Please be patient. We'll be moving in a minute. That's due to the multiplex telegraph. And Granville T. Woods is known as the Black Edison, and Thomas Edison actually tried to steal his inventions. He had to actually take Thomas Edison to court for stealing his inventions. Thomas Edison wanted Granville T. Woods to work for him, but Granville T. Woods refused. You had Elijah McCoy, who created the self-lubricating system on a train. So the train would be able to lubricate itself while in motion. If the train needed oil, it would lubricate itself while in motion. Prior to the Elijah McCoy making that self-lubricating system, the train actually had to stop and had to actually lubricate the train manually. But thanks to Elijah McCoy, all of that stopped. And it was a so-called Negro that actually created the car. Let me see if I can find that real quick. This is a man named C.R. Patterson. Born slave, built automobiles before Henry Ford. That's what I should have said. C.R. Patterson, born slave, built automobiles before Henry Ford. Some of the finest buggies made in the late 1800s came out of a small black-owned company in Ohio. Charles Rich Patterson's company later made motor vehicles in history by founding the country's only African-American-owned automobile manufacturing company. To hear Tom Smith tell it, had Patterson been a white man, Greenfield, Ohio could have been another Detroit. Car dealer and lifelong resident of Greenfield, has spent years compiling mementos and information about the historical family. Just before the Civil War, Patterson left slavery and headed north, bringing blacksmith skills he learned in Virginia. Not long after settling in, Patterson began working at a carriage company. By 1870, he was a foreman, and by 1873, Patterson had gone into business with J.P. Lowe, a white carriage maker. Then Lowe died about a decade later. Patterson become the sole owner. He made 28 different horse-drawn vehicles, doctor buggies, backboards, phaetons, rockaways, and surreys, says Smith, who managed to find and buy 3 Patterson buggies. In 1883, Patterson's 2 sons, Frederick Douglass and Samuel, could help Dad work at what had become C.R. Patterson and Son Carriage Company. That's a different Frederick Douglass. They became natural mechanics and even built. It should be a different Frederick Douglass. They became natural mechanics. Well, it is. They became natural mechanics and even built some of their own designs, says Smith. Sam died in 1889. Fred went on to make his own history by becoming the first black person to graduate from the town's high school in 1888 and first black football player at Ohio State in 1891. Fred left Greenfield to teach history in Louisville, Kentucky. That's where Muhammad Ali is from. After graduating from Ohio State, he rejoined his father in 1897 and began taking a greater leadership role in the company. In 1902, there was one car to every 65,000 people. In 1909, there was one to every 800, says Smith. Fred could see the buggy was a dying industry. After CR died in 1910, CR Patterson, and see right here, it says Rasta Live Wire and AfricaSource.com. They don't know what the hell's going on. They lost. But anyway, after CR died in 1910, Fred began tinkering with motor-driven vehicles with a goal to build a car that could rival anything produced by the new automotive industry. The company still made buggies, but also turned its attention to creating the Greenfield touring car and the Roadster. There are different reports, but it seems that on September 23rd, 1915, the first car rode off the line, says Smith. According to advertisements, the two-door vehicle featured a full floating rear axle, cantilever springs, electric starting and lighting, and a split windshield for ventilation. They didn't make the engine. It was a Continental, capable of going up to 50 miles per hour. The car cost $850. I've read in several places that it was superior to Henry Ford's Model T. I could read this whole thing, but we gonna be here forever. But this is the so-called American Negro who was born a slave. Born a slave. Us being set back by slavery for hundreds of years didn't stop this so-called Negro from being able to build a car. Because why? We are special people above all people on the face of the earth. Our talents will go far beyond the basketball court and the football field and the boxing ring. Go far beyond that, man. Go far beyond that. We are Israelites. We are not Africans. And I can go on and on with this. Let me give you another one. Granville T. Woods, right? It says, Granville Woods, the magnitude of an inventor's work can often be defined by the esteem in which he is held by fellow inventors. If this is the case, then Granville Woods was certainly a respected inventor and was often referred to as the Black Thomas Edison. No, he was Granville T. Woods. That's what he was, Granville Woods. We gotta compare a Negro to a devil. He was gonna be the black version of a devil. See that? Granville Woods was born on April 23rd, 1856, in Columbus, Ohio. He spent his early years attending school until the age of 10, at which point he began working in a machine shop repairing railroad equipment and machinery. Intrigued by the electricity that powered the machinery, Woods studied over other machine workers as they attended to different pieces of equipment and paid other workers to sit down and explain electrical concepts to him. Over the next few years, Woods moved around the country working on railroads and in steel rolling mills. This experience helped to prepare him for a formal education, studying engineering. Surprisingly, it is unknown exactly where he attended school, but it is believed it was in Easton College. After 2 years of studying, Woods obtained a job as an engineer on a British steamship called the Ironsides. 2 years later, he obtained employment with D&S Railroads, driving a steam locomotive. Unfortunately, despite his high aptitude and valuable education and expertise, Woods was denied opportunities and promotion because of the color of his skin. Out of frustration and a desire to promote his abilities, Woods, along with his brother Laertes, formed the Woods Railway Telegraph Company in 1884. The company manufactured and sold telephone, telegraph, and electrical equipment. One of the earliest inventions from the company was an improved steam boiler furnace, and this was followed up by an improved telephone transmitter, which has superior clarity of sound and could provide for a longer range of distance for transmission. In 1885, Woods patented an apparatus which was a combination of a telephone and a telegraph. The device, which he called telegraphony, would allow a telegraph station to send a voice and telegraph messages over a single wire. So it can send you a message and a voice over a single wire. The device was so successful that he later sold it to the American Bell Telephone Company. In 1887, Woods developed his most important invention to date, a device he called synchronous multiplex railway telegraph. I mentioned that earlier. A variation of the induction telegraph. It allowed for messages to be sent from moving trains and railway stations. By allowing dispatchers to know the location of each train, it provided for greater safety and a decrease in railway accidents. See, Granville Woods often had difficulties in enjoying his success, as other inventors made claims to his devices. Thomas Edison made one of these claims, stating that he had first created a similar telegraph and that he was entitled to the patent for the device. Goddamn devil. Woods was twice successful in defending himself, proving that there were no other devices upon which he could have depended or relied upon to make his device. After the second defeat, Edison decided that it would be better to work with Granville T. Woods than against him, and thus offered him a position at the Edison Company. In 1892, Woods used his knowledge of electrical systems in creating a method of supplying electricity to a train without any exposed wires or secondary batteries. I mean, come on, man. Approximately every 12 feet, electricity would be passed to the train as it passed over an iron block. He first demonstrated the device as an amusement apparatus at the Coney Island Amusement Park, and while it amused patrons, it would be a novel approach towards making safer travel for trains. Many of Wood's inventions attempted to increase the efficiency of safety railroad cars. Woods developed the concept of a third rail, which would allow a train to receive more electricity while also encountering less friction. That's what I'm gonna read on that. So, in fact, I might as well finish reading it. It says, this concept is still used on subway train platforms in major cities in the United States. Over the course of his lifetime, Granville Woods would obtain more than 50 patents for inventions, including an automatic brake, an egg incubator, and for improvements to other inventions such as safety circuits, telegraph, telephone, and phonograph. When he died on January 30th, 1910 in New York City, he had become an admired and well-respected inventor, having sold a number of his devices to such giants as Westinghouse, General Electric, and American Engineering. More importantly, the world knew him as the Black Edison. No, more importantly, he was an Israelite. All right? The Most High bestowed upon that man a gift, man, because he was an Israelite. You don't got this, and this is straight out of slavery. How come all these inventions, they come out of Africa? Oh, Africans did this, the pyramids, and pyramids built by Israelites, man. We're Israelites. We're not no Africans, man. We are the most imitated people on the earth, man. Now, the Israelites are your so-called American Negroes, West Indians, Haitians, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Cubans, so-called North American Indians, Seminole Indians, people from Guatemala to Panama, Colombia to Uruguay, Argentina to Chile, so-called Mexicans. Those are the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. But Judah is the head tribe, so-called American Negroes. You are Israelite based upon your father's line. The two head tribes of the nation of Israel are the so-called Negroes and the so-called Puerto Ricans, or the tribe of Judah, which are the so-called Negroes, and the tribe of Ephraim, which are the so-called Puerto Ricans. But the reason I'm mainly focused on Judah in this show is because you always got these damn so-called Negroes here in America claiming they're Africans. We ain't no Africans, we're Israelites. Us and them are two completely different groups of people. And I might make another part 2 of this later on today. So then I'm going to close and say, oh, praise the Habashim Al-Shah. I hope brothers learn something. Shalom.